the market's up a little bit today. I guess we'll continue to do these coronavirus updates as we can. The market seems to have a little rebound. Bad day yesterday, very good day Monday, so it's very choppy right now. People coming in and out of the market. Don't try to catch a falling knife, they say. Don't try to game the market out. If you're a long-term investor and you think that this is, which I am, and you think that this is going to work itself out, then just pick sound investments for yourself. If you're somebody that, needs cash now, whatever, I mean, yeah, maybe you de-risk a little bit. Maybe you take a little bit of you actually hedge, which it's funny because people always talk about hedge funds, but hedge funds don't really often do what their initial strategy was supposed to be, which is hedging. A lot of them just are massive investment pools. So coronavirus, the interesting news today was that they think there may be 2 strains of it going around, and that one strain is much more dangerous but less transmissible, less easy for it to be passed on to others than the other strain. That would make sense to me. Latest reporting from the World Health Organization is that the mortality rate of coronavirus is even higher than they thought. It's maybe more like 3%. That is contra the thesis that I've been advancing to you, that I think that it's probably a lesser mortality rate because we don't know the number of cases. I don't think that I'm wrong. I just think that they're having to adjust the numbers based on the cases that are reported and the number of fatalities. It would, however, make sense to me that you might have 2 virus strains out there. This was reported today. You might have 2 virus strains that are very similar but different enough that one of them spreads pretty rapidly because people have low or no symptoms for the incubation period and are less likely to self-quarantine. And that one may have that strain may have more like a flu-level mortality rate. But then there's this other coronavirus strain that's already out there as well, because the virus can change, can mutate, and that one would have more like a 3 or 4% mortality, which is really scary. And now you get into, well, is that, and this is just, it's a theory that has been put out there today. I think Daily Mail was reporting on it based on what some medical experts are seeing. That's also a possibility. Look, we're going to get through this. There's no question about that. We're just trying to get through it with minimum loss of life, minimum disruption to the economy. And this is, every administration has stuff come up that is not expecting. That's not the fault of the administration. It's true of every presidency. It's just the nature of life and the world we live in. There are things that happen. And the Trump administration's adaptation to this particular challenge, I think, has been so far strong. And hopefully we can continue to see the containment that there are public health experts. And, for everyone who says, listen to the scientists. Yeah, when you listen to scientists on this, what you often find out is that they don't completely agree. So what does that mean, to listen to scientists? The left likes to boil this stuff down to talking points that don't really give us a whole lot to work with. Is it the case that this is pretty much contained in some places or not? That's what we should begin to, we need to look at this, and that's what we need to understand if we're going to have a pretty good projection for how well we'll be able to deal with this or not.
I in the legislature, in the Michigan legislature for 6 years, used to say to people, yo, you know what? You're so freaking obsessed with what I decide to do with my body. Maybe you shouldn't even want to have sex with me or with you or with any women.
That's Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, in case you were wondering. That's the level of discourse that she brings to the Democratic Party. Really high-level stuff. I think it's clear. She's a moron, but she's a dangerous moron. She's somebody who will say whatever to get the crowd fired up on issues where she can't actually speak to what's really going on. She just knows the talking points and screams them at people. And the whole thing about don't even want to have sex with, I'm not even going to touch that. I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to leave that. Another member of Congress on this issue, Ayanna Pressley, another one of the woke crowd in Congress. Here's what she's a new member of Congress. She's place 7.
And we have 2 alleged sexual predators on the bench of the highest court of the land with the power to determine our reproductive freedoms. I still believe Anita Hill, and I still believe Dr. Christine Christine Blasey Ford. So yes, I am outraged because this is outrageous. Let us channel our righteous rage into voting power, the power to evict the occupant of this White House, to legislate our destiny, to affirm our collective liberation. I stand ready as a partner in this battle to protect the will of the people and ensure every person has the right to self-determination over their reproductive health. The people united will never be defeated.
That was a really perfect soundbite in so many ways of what the lib delusion is here. People united. I mean, going with the kind of Alinsky mobilizing, community organizing, yelling out on the street. Yeah, it's all about our right for reproductive health. Reproductive health? There is no health condition that she's talking about here. That's not part of the discussion. But this is where we are, and the even more in a sense that there's so I mean, you know what, I'm gonna cut it off at this segment because I know we got other things to talk about, but I'll just say this: to call Kavanaugh and Justice Thomas sexual predators. First of all, Clarence Thomas was accused of like making some sexual jokes. That doesn't make you a sexual predator, and only a moron would say otherwise. So let's start with that. Okay, you're not a sexual predator if you make jokes that are inappropriate in the workplace. And who knows if he even did? I mean, he said he didn't, and there was no proof, and she followed him around and wanted to keep working with him forever. So I guess it wasn't that bad. But there's a huge anti-male component at the heart of left-wing feminism. Huge resentment of men because left-wing feminists have told them to compete with men in every regard. You're the same as men. You're exactly the same as men. And if they don't view you as such, if they don't treat you as such, not legally equal in every respect. That's why men are now competing in women's powerlifting tournaments, folks. That's happening because of the left-wing delusion that men and women are the same. Break down gender. And if you don't agree with that, you're a misogynist, you're a sexist. And she throws in Kavanaugh, too, alleged sexual predator. Only a moron, given the facts, really believes that Kavanaugh is a sexual predator. I mean, that is such a smear. Somebody should ask her. Somebody in the press should say, excuse me, Ayanna Pressley, the third accuser of Kavanaugh said that he was running the gang rape rings in high school that nobody ever heard of from the crazy lady who was clearly lying. Do you believe her? Does she have a right to be believed? We don't have a real press, though. We've got lackeys. We've got journalists. I mean, I despise lib journos so much that I honestly sometimes think, I don't even know how long I can stay in this business because that's how annoying they are. Like, maybe it'd be nice to just, build homes or write poetry or something. Who knows? But these libs are completely out of their minds. Now we get to what this rally was all about and what they're pushing for and what the politics around this are. I'm often told that this is that you'll hear when you push somebody in a corner of this, and a woman doesn't. No woman wants to have an abortion, and it's a very difficult choice. And we always hear about how difficult it is, and it's so challenging and difficult and emotional and difficult. And okay, is that really the position of the pro-choice abortion movement? We just call it the abortion movement. I mean, it is that's what this is all about. It's about aborting unborn babies. And this is, for example, what's said at these rallies. Producer Mark, play clip 19.
Let's hear it for Senator Schumer! Let's hear it for all the people who have abortions! Let's hear it for our trans folks who have abortions!
Let's hear it for all the folks who have abortions. Let's cheer. Let's cheer for it. That's what's going on. You have a crowd of people gathered in the Supreme Court who are cheering for this. And there are a series of different interviews that are out there right now making the rounds on social media where women are asked about this issue. And some of them will number their abortions. They'll say, I've had 2, I've had 3. And they're proud of it. They think that they're like freedom fighters for women because they've done this. The corruption of the mind and the soul that the Democratic Party has engaged in here is something that the country will have to wrestle with for hundreds of years to come. It's such a sad thing. I mean, I'm getting older every day now, and I think more and more about what I wish I knew when I was younger. And there are some things that I'm very confident in. And one of them is that everybody that makes the choice for life, When they get older and as they look back on their life, they'll always think that that was the right decision. And a lot of people that go the other way do not. They won't talk about this. They won't show you the studies. They won't have people come forward who will, they won't give them platforms. I mean, this is also one area where the media, because the abortion regime is so powerful, and they are powerful, you cannot be a Democrat who is not an extremist on the issue of abortion. You cannot be one. At the national level, you could not run for president. You will not win in an all blue state. They might let you kind of pretend at the end of the day if you're in like a state like West Virginia, let's say, and you're trying to run as a Democrat. They might let you say that, but when it comes to a vote that matters, oh no, you're going to fall in line with those Democrats. So, and then you look at Planned Parenthood and the amount of money that's given. I mean, there are huge pools of cash that come from the abortion industry and make their way to politicians. There are a number of very prominent people in the media who either themselves or their spouses have been advocates for, publicly pushing for funding for Planned Parenthood. Some of them have worked for Planned Parenthood. I mean, when you start to dig into this, you realize that this is an underworld of immorality it's just below the surface. I mean, you'd have to dig a little bit. Oh, you mean so-and-so's wife was a regional director of Planned Parenthood, and now he is reporting on this Supreme Court issue in a way that always seems to take the liberal side of the argument. What a surprise, right? Bernie's still feeling the burn. He thinks he's going to be able to pull this off. Do I think he's, at this point, delusional? Close to it, although look at what happened here on Super Tuesday. The only thing we know is that anything can happen, right? Do I think it's a distinct possibility that Bernie Sanders very well, no. I mean, I don't think it's a distinct possibility. I think it's a low percentage, but there is a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. There's a chance that Bernie Sanders could find himself doing much better in these follow-on states than people anticipate. Industrial Midwest, Rust Belt states, in the South. I mean, unlikely. The big differentiator for Biden in states in the South was the African American vote. That, look, they according to all the polling, they never wavered, and they figured Biden was the safe choice. Biden was who it was going to be, and looks like they were all right. The people who were the African American primary voters who thought that Biden was going to be the guy, when a lot of everybody else was like, not going to be Biden. Whoop! Turns out it is going to be Biden. So we have to look at the reality of what the follow-on states now are after Super Tuesday for Bernie. Bernie has to say at this point, he's raised so much money, he has to say that he's going to fight this out to the very end. And who knows how it's going to shake out when they get to the convention and crazy stuff. We're in a crazy world. I mentioned before, hello, she's still running around. She's still making noises on the sidelines of this campaign. I haven't forgotten about this. Play clip 2, Producer Mark.
In the campaign, in the documentary, you talk about his campaign from 2016, and you call it, quote, just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. Do you still feel that way now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was my authentic opinion then. It's my authentic opinion now. Here's one of the saddest things happening right now. The House of Representatives under Democratic leadership has passed 400 bills on really important issues, everything from health care to economic security to election security. It just goes on and on. Does anybody know that, Lindsay? Of course not. Nobody knows that. Change is hard. It's not glamorous. It doesn't fit into a soundbite. And yet the people who were elected in 2018 are down there doing the people's work. And I just think we ought to be more understanding and realistic about what it takes to get change in this big, complicated, pluralistic democracy of ours. And it's not easy, but boy, is it ever worth it. And I just want to make sure that voters know what can be done if they give the White House back to the Democrats.
Who should be the Democrat they give it back to, Hillary? I have an idea. Who should it be? I told you guys I saw the actor, and I would say public intellectual, even though he probably wouldn't take. I'm going to confer that title upon him based solely on his Twitter game, James Woods. I bumped into him in the elevator in California after my brother had said, "Hey, where's James Woods?" the night before, which was just crazy. James put out a tweet this morning, though, with an idea. It's just a theory, crediting it to a man who I think studied advanced like algebraic theory at MIT, and he was a really interesting guy in that regard. But anyway, he put out a theory, and I'm just putting it out there. Now we're getting into the speculation zone. Biden's too old. Has moments that if you, I will say this, and I don't, we get into this area. It's difficult sometimes to balance speaking the truth about Biden. This is why I also made that comment earlier in the week about how, I do respect the fact that he has dealt with severe tragedy in his life and kept on going, and didn't make excuses and just disappear, and didn't, there's respect there. You got to respect what should be respected. Okay, on to now the senility question. Keep in mind that Donald Trump being crazy, I mean, they're saying that Donald Trump suffers from a serious enough mental illness that he should no longer be president. That has been a favorite game of the Democrats now for years. But there is a real, imagine, for example, how the markets would react if the president all of a sudden walked out to give a speech, whether it was Trump or Biden or anybody else. The president walked out and gave a speech and just started speaking in gibberish. I remember once in my life when I had such a high fever, and I still remember it happening, speaking in gibberish, thinking I was able to speak to my parents. It's terrifying because you hear and you're like, that's not what I'm trying to say. So that can happen. Imagine if the president of the United States came out and it was, my fellow Americans, I'd like to say that, and all of a sudden they got to run out there and they got like Secret Service kind of grabbing him and shuffling him off the stage. Think of what the markets would do. Think of what our enemies would be thinking around the world. It's not good. It's not, and because it's not even just that, oh, look at this bad moment. It's bad optics. This is the person who's making really critical decisions about things. Decision-making, decision fatigue is real. The decision-making process that we all have to engage in every day is one of the most important things we do, right? Decisions abound. We're constantly being forced to make decisions. Judgment. In many ways, life is a judgment test. What is your judgment about a whole host of issues, from the small to the very, very, very important? When somebody that may have the actual brain chemistry misfiring, it's a real discussion. It's fair to have it about Biden. And, we get in this area, though, where the media is just going to pretend that it's not true, that he does not have what would seem, if he were a relative of mine and he had these incidents, if he were my great Uncle Joe, let's say, and I had seen him having these incidents, I would be worried about the mental health of my family member. I honestly would. Some of these things, it's cloudy. And I remember visiting in Brooklyn. I grew up here in New York City. I remember visiting a great-grandmother when I was very young, and I didn't know what dementia was, but she would have paranoid episodes and show signs of dementia. She was in her 90s. And, it's a tough thing to see no matter how old somebody is. Joe Biden's not quite there, but he's showing some of these early signs. And so, I don't want to be unkind, unchristian. I'm not trying to be nasty about it, but it's real. It's real. And they're going to pretend that it's not. And I think this is where we get into the James Woods theory. That's why I brought this up. There's all kinds of crazy ideas out there right now, but Hillary as VP under a Biden ticket. I know you, and keep in mind, Hillary as VP under a Biden ticket, it sets right in the minds of the left 2016. They would bring it would bring together the Clinton and Obama political machines. And Biden could very well he could agree to be a one-termer. Just say, I've got one term in me, and then I'm going to pass the baton on. Now, Hillary's older, too, but she's not as old as Biden, I don't think. I think she's like 71 or 70. She's like Trump age. But Biden could say, I'm going to pass the baton on to Hillary. You'd have a built-in, then, first woman president, assuming she was able to win then with Biden in the Oval Office. How old is she?
She's 72.
Yeah, that's what. I think that's what Trump is. Trump's 72. 6 years, 7 years, 8 years makes a big difference at that age. It does. Any of you who have aging family members, like the difference between 60 and 70 is big. The difference between 70 and 80 is huge. So what about Hillary being brought in as the vice president under a Biden ticket, and then Biden says, I'm just going to be a one-termer? And the idea would be that at any point in time, Biden could say, for health reasons, he could this is the James Woods theory, he could gracefully bow out and say, we've got a wonderful president ready to go here with Hillary Clinton. You all know her. I'm going to go and give, speeches for $500,000 a pop or $250 a pop and go fishing. And I've saved the country. That becomes the narrative. He would have saved the country because they think that Donald Trump's an existential threat on behalf of the Democratic Party. And he would be, in Democrat circles, he would be a hero for all time. I can't say this is going to happen. Maybe Biden wouldn't want to be overshadowed by Hillary. I do think Biden probably recognizes that at some level, that he's missing a step and is too old for this, but thinks that he's the best chance they have against Trump, which may actually be true, and that he's doing them a favor by fighting this thing out to the very end. But Hillary as VP, it doesn't. Could they go a lot younger? Sure. But I don't think this is as out there. I don't know what the Vegas odds on this would be, but I think Hillary being VP under a Biden ticket, if he gets the nomination, makes a lot of sense. Remember, they floated Bloomberg and Hillary, and people say now that was just the Bloomberg campaign trying to get attention, whatever. Okay, well, all these consultants, all the people crunching the numbers, clearly they overestimated, but they had an incentive. Remember this. They had an incentive to overestimate Bloomberg's chances because they wanted the cash. Yeah, sure, this will be great. Give me more money. Oh, yeah, you'll totally win California. Give me more money. Hillary, as a shiny object to put out there to get more attention for the Bloomberg campaign, only works because people think it's feasible. People only think it's feasible because it is, I think. Does anyone doubt that Hillary would take a vice presidential slot under a Biden? I don't doubt it. I don't think she would. She wants back into the White House one way or another, even though I know it's technically the Naval Observatory she'd be living in. But, she wants back in the game. She doesn't want to sit this out. She doesn't want to go do yoga and go for walks and drinking Chardonnay and Chappaqua. No. She wants back in. It would not surprise me in the least if Hillary Clinton somehow managed this. Here's another prediction. We'll mark this with a post-Super Tuesday prediction. We'll have to mark this one down. Could Hillary end up being the VP? You'd have an old Democrat ticket, but one with a lot of resonance, 100% name recognition, a ton of money, and the media all in to support. Makes sense.
Let me start with my headline tonight. I'm retiring. This is the last hardball on MSNBC, and obviously, this isn't for lack of interest in politics. As you can tell, I've loved every minute of my 20 years as host of Hardball. Every morning I read the papers, and I'm gung-ho to get to work. Not many people have had this privilege. I love working with my producers and the discussions we have over how to report the news. And I love having this connection with you, the good people who watch.
Last night. Well, it was his last night. That was Chris Matthews. I have no idea what happened. I met Chris Matthews once at a fancy D.C. cocktail party. Those things do exist. I was at one. I met Chris Matthews. I happened to be invited to one by a date. But I was there and I met him, and he's one of these guys he was in the game a long time. I think, he probably started to miss a step in the last few years because he would just go on TV and say really dumb stuff. I think the single most famous phrase he ever uttered was the thrill up the leg, right? About Obama winning. People like him. That you get comfortable with certain media personalities, and then I think you don't even really judge them anymore based on their performance. That's just a common thing. People who have been listening to certain people for a very long time don't care when the show gets bad. They watch somebody for a very long time. They don't care when the show has really ceased to be worthwhile. That's just true across the news media. I don't know why he got pushed out, other than they said that there are comments that he made about women. And I just can't help but notice that Joy Reid still has a job at MSNBC and is treated very well there, is on air regularly. And Joy Reid wrote homophobic stuff on her blog and then claimed that this was real, claimed that people hacked into her blog to write the homophobic stuff to get her in trouble, and that she was going to ask the FBI to investigate. She still has a job. Chris Matthews was close to retirement anyway, and, I understand that. Chris Matthews does not have a job anymore. And I'm not crying any tears for the guy. He's made millions and millions and millions of dollars to do something that he's really just lucky. He was lucky to be in the right place at the right time and just kind of ride the wave as long as he did. Never found him to be an impressive guy. I do not understand why anybody would turn to him for analysis of anything. But again, it's just, I'm Chris Matthews, I'm loud, I yell, it's just I'm here in D.C., I'm talking fast, and I seem like I know things, and I got connections, I don't know. Some people seem to think that means that he knows something. But he's gone, and there's certainly at some level, there's a bit of a Me Too component to this. I just wish we had a better idea. If we're going to assess, also, do we really care? That's why it's the end of the show I'm mentioning this. The answer is no, we don't really care. But, I think it's interesting to see how people just take it for granted. On the one side, you have those who see this as inherently as a victory. Another white male fired from his job for comments about women. And there are other people like me who just want to know, okay, well, if we're going to celebrate this, can we know what was going on here? Or do we just have to now celebrate? Somebody loses their job or is pushed out, and it has to do with comments, not actual physical touching or anything criminal, comments to women, and we can't know the comments, and we're supposed to celebrate it? Anyway, I'm not going to miss Chris Matthews. I never watched him. I thought his show was dumb, but this is what happened. I have told you before, I think that the Young Turks is a pretty terrible media organization with some really nasty and dishonest people who work for it. Cenk Uygur, who is the founder of Young Turks, who, just as a side note, he's running for Congress. He recently told the Young Turks, which is super left-wing, if you don't know what they are, they are the most woke, the most left-wing digital media outlet, at least in their own minds. I think they would agree that that's all probably true. So it's interesting that when they wanted to unionize, guess what? Their CEO and founder, Cenk, was like, no, you guys, you can't don't unionize. We can't afford that. I thought unions were good. This story just came out in the last few weeks. I thought unions were a great thing. Everybody should unionize. Come on. What's wrong with the fat cats? They just want to pay their workers a little bit more. So here, though, is Cenk, who I've interviewed him before. He can be reasonably pleasant. He's a socialist. He calls himself a progressive, but he's a socialist. And here he is talking about, this is just fun for a lot of us to enjoy this one. Here is why, according to one of the most left-wing, wokest of woke pundits out there, who is running for Congress, as a Democrat, of course, here's why Joe Biden sucks. Play it.
And so you want to go to war, we'll go to war. And that is what this is. We cannot let Biden win. Guys, not just on progressives versus establishment. This is so important. I need you to understand this. Biden is not going to beat Trump. Biden is either near senile or actually senile. Watch any of the tapes. And Biden lies nonstop. He's going to get caught. The media is covering for him, but they're not going to be able to cover when the Republicans come for him. And when Trump comes for him, he's not going to beat Trump. The establishment candidate is less likely to beat Trump. Anyway, we just had 2016. The establishment candidate lost to a doofus like Trump. And now here we go, an establishment candidate that is far worse with his mental faculties under question. His record worse than Hillary Clinton's. He lies 1,000 times more than Hillary Clinton did, right? And you're going to run that guy against Trump, and we're going to lose to Trump again and maybe lose our democracy? Hell no.
I think that everything that he is saying... Oh, sorry, Cenk lost the primary yesterday. Thanks, producer Nick. So he lost already. Good call. He came in fourth. Not surprising. Producer Nick with the assist on that one. But I got to say, Cenk's analysis here of Joe Biden is totally correct across the board. He lies all the time. He said he was arrested going to see Mandela recently. Total bull. He guys clearly kind of forgets where he is sometimes. He's not a skilled politician when you really get down to it. I mean, it's amazing. Why would we got to remember that, you know, the email thing, the Democrats managed to cover on Hillary for that. Comey made that go away. They went to the wall, to the mat, to the mattresses, to the whatever the phrase is. I mean, they went all in behind Hillary and were unable to make it work. In what world is Joe Biden a more compelling? Remember, Hillary was Obama's Secretary of State. Hillary was the first female candidate that would have been the first female president of the United States, right? Hillary had a very close tie-in to the Obama administration, going to be a third term of Obama. That was the implicit idea beyond the whole first woman president carrying on the torch from the Obama administration, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't get it done. And as we know from the way the voting shook out, not even close. I stayed at a hotel in LA and they had a little pool on the roof. And there's some guy who was obviously from like the UK, and he sit there and he was on FaceTime and he put it on speaker. She was like, I really like Los Angeles. It's having a great time here by the pool. I'm loving every second of it. I'm going to keep yelling on my phone. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, dude, you know, there's other people at the pool. Why Producer Mark, I think you would even have to agree, or I'm going to ask you if you agree, that if you're in a public place, you don't get to be on speakerphone.
People do it all the time.
On the train.
On the street.
On the train, they do this. People also think they can like watch their video clips or whatever with the volume blasting
without headphones.
Without headphones. What has to happen here, people? This is civilization is in the balance.
I have something worse.
What's that?
Morning, I'm on the train on my way to the Freedom Hut.
Yeah.
And this guy, not only was he on the phone talking loudly, he started clipping his fingernails.
That's disgusting.
I looked at him horrified. Like, I didn't say anything because I didn't feel like getting into a fight.
Gosh. I don't know what I would do. That's so gross.
It's not the first time I've seen it either. Like, people are disgusting.
Yeah, I know.
Like, how do you who thinks that's acceptable?
There are people out there these days, man. I gotta tell you, I really think that manners are in decline. I think that people just don't care about anybody around them anymore. And we all have these devices that connect us to the people we do care about. And so the actual human beings in our vicinity get completely forgotten in favor of our connection to our digital world. And I mean, people that think that they're in speaker. I sat down to have breakfast at a hotel with, my brothers. By the way, both my brothers came out to see the Bill Maher show with me. Thank God. I had a little bit of backup. I had the cavalry with me, and we had fun. I mean, I think they were a little frustrated that I was in a situation where I was just being cut off so much and not allowed to talk. Which at some point, if you're just not being allowed to talk, there's only so much you'll be able to do. And one funny story though I had for you is my brother, when my older brother, when we were backstage after the show, there's a little green room party for people that are on the Bill Maher show. He said, hey, he's like, isn't James Woods is great on Twitter. He's like, he'd be great on the show. Or he's like, you should have him on your show. Or, we should hang out with him sometime. He brought up, James Woods, who is great on Twitter. And just out of nowhere, my brother, and I was like, yeah, James Woods, he'd be cool. And, I'll send him a DM and I'll tell him he should do my show I'll send him a DM on Twitter. And I didn't even get a chance to tell producer Mark this. I'm in my hotel the next day. And I step into the hotel elevator. James Woods is in the elevator. He sent me a DM. I mean, I have the DM being like, great to meet you, whatever. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was, we now joke my older brother has some magic power, like he could like manifest human beings. He was just like, it'd be cool. James Woods, either on this show or your show. I'm like, yeah, James Woods. He's like, yeah, you should like reach out. You should reach out to him. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Did he had seen him in the hotel maybe earlier that day?
Nope, wasn't staying in my hotel.
Huh.
Different hotel.
Okay.
No way. And James Woods lives in L.A. So I asked him, like, what are you doing in a hotel? He's like, oh, I'm going to an event. I wanted to be closer by so I don't have to worry about getting home. So, yeah. So he was staying in my hotel, and my brother brought him up, and my brother wasn't in that hotel, and he obviously, it was just crazy.
Well, Buck, did you book him for the show?
That's a good point. I should do that. I thought about it.
On.
I was like, we should all go out drinking, and he was like, oh, well, I got some cool James Woods. It's a cool Hollywood party to go to. This is a perfect example of Trump derangement syndrome. It's one that I dealt with on the Bill Maher show Friday, when at the top of the panel, the first thing that was posed was Trump has called this a hoax. Discuss. And I tried to say, no. There are two discussions going on in this country. One is about what to do here. Everyone knows there's a disease. Everyone knows there's this virus out there. And the other is the blame shifting or the blaming. It's not even shifting. It's just putting blame on Trump before anything has even happened in this country about this. We don't know what they're, but to say that the president has called coronavirus a hoax is a huge and stupid lie. And when you have to respond to a huge and stupid lie, it's very difficult. And then people, I tried to establish for them, no, this is not, is Scott Pelley some right-wing hack? To his credit on CBS, he's like, no, that's not what the president said. Bill Maher panel, you can go watch it. That's exactly, president's called this a hoax. He lies. This is what ends up happening. I sit here and say, no. Are we going to talk about the response? Because there's a lot of real things to dive into about how concerned should we be? What can we do? What are the proper precautions? What are the proper measures? What government agencies need what? I mean, there's this, it's like we're going off to war, and Democrats just want to just scream, oh, he's lost the war. He's lost the war already. He's lost it. No, he lost the war. Like a bunch of moronic toddlers that have been trained to say this. No offense to toddlers out there, but you know what I mean? Like little kids who don't know anything. As we know, Democrats love kids who don't know anything if they can spout their political slogans. How dare you? Getting better at that. So this is a perfect example. And Bloomberg is caught on this by Pelley. Pelley's like, look, I mean, that's not, and by the way, he's not sharper than me. He just says, well, that's not really what was said. No, it's not what was said at all. Think about this. The Democrats like to believe. It makes them feel good. They feel intelligent, clinging to this notion that Donald Trump is calling a disease that his administration set a task force up over a month ago when they were busy impeaching the president over crap, over nothing. When they were impeaching Trump, Trump was pulling together a task force, and they were questioning whether or not there was enough diversity in a photo of that task force on coronavirus. If the president thought this was a hoax, why is he giving speeches about this? If the president did not believe that this was a serious issue, why are we hearing from Dr. Fauci, NIH, CDC, all the requests for billions of dollars of funding, regular updates from the administration, Pence set up as the coronavirus, czar might not be the right word, coordinator, point guy, whatever you want to call him. But they're saying he thinks it's a hoax? How do you have, this is why, and if you did see the show on Friday, you'll see what I mean. And other than just, they constantly talk over me. And at some point you just, if you're not able to speak, it's like trying to give a speech at a college with all the idiots that'll pound on the windows and all yell and blare bullhorns and stuff, or, foghorns, whatever, bullhorn, foghorn, same idea. There's only so much you can really do. But the initial premise that Trump called coronavirus a hoax, that is a lie. And for people to then transition to Trump lies while they are lying about him is, in a sense, the ultimate in Trump derangement syndrome. Like, this is the distillation. This is in its purest form, 100% unadulterated TDS is apparent the moment that they have to lie about Trump so that they can say that he's a liar. And that's where we are as a country. That's where the discussion is now politically. People that hate Trump, you cannot talk to them. You cannot address them, even on issues that are not specifically Trump related. They'll bring it back to Trump. Trump is a liar. They're just nuts. I don't know how else we can describe it. They've just completely come unhinged, unglued over the president. That's why, Mike Bloomberg, is he so stupid that he does not know what the president said? No. But he really believes the rhetoric that the president's a clear and present danger. One point that I made on the show on Friday was that no matter what you think of Trump, he does not want this to be a pandemic here. No matter who you are, no matter how terrible, if you think Trump is a traitor and a racist and a rapist and all these other just lies that they spread about the president all the time, he wants the number of people who die from coronavirus in the United States. He wants it to be 0. Now we know it's 2 people. He wants to be the lowest number possible. They won't even accept that.
Well, after yesterday's results, the delegate math had become virtually impossible, and a viable path to the nomination just no longer existed. And I will not be our party's nominee. But I will not walk away from the most important political fight of my life, and I hope you won't walk away either. I've always believed that defeating Donald Trump starts with uniting behind the candidate with the best shot to do it. And after yesterday's vote, it is clear that candidate is my friend and a great American, Joe Biden. I've known Joe for a very long time. I know his decency, his honesty, his commitment to the issues that are so important to our country, including gun safety, health care, climate change, and good jobs. And I've had a chance to work with Joe on those issues over the years, especially when he was vice president. He fought for working people his whole life. And I'm glad to say I endorse Joe Biden, and I hope you will join me in working to make him the next president of the United States.
Here's $1,000. Get excited. Each one of you a crisp $1,000 bill. Yay, Bloomberg. Bruce and Mark, did I mention on the show that he won Aspen, Colorado? I just thought that was awesome. People leave that out. It's only a county in Colorado.
You did not.
He won Aspen.
Of course he did.
Yeah, of course he did. I
Spends
mean,
a lot of time
you
there.
got to have if you're going to have people show up to vote in a place where legitimately houses are starting in the millions of dollars and people, put out their fire in the fireplace with Dom Perignon. I mean, you're going to go for Biden. I'm sorry. You're going to go for Bloomberg. Whoops. They went for Bloomberg. The B's keep getting me confused. There's too many B's. Biden, Bloomberg, Bernie. So he won that, and he won American Samoa. 300 votes cast in American Samoa. 55,000 total people on that island. But I've been digging more and more into Biden. There was actually a reasonably helpful Politico piece, although you have to love Politico in its reporting on the Chuck Schumer gaffe. Went with the whole McConnell pours gasoline on Schumer's comments. It's like, it's just Republicans pounce. They can't help themselves. Republicans pounce. That's always the way these things are. Whenever a Democrat makes a mistake, just look for the journos to say Republicans pounce. Well, what about the mistake that was made? How about that as the focus? It would be like if you lit my house on fire and I came up to you and I was like, hey, why you really shouldn't have lit my house on fire. And then the reporter's like, oh, Buck pounces on member of Team Buck for lighting house on fire. Like, well, yeah. I think the bigger issue is the burning domicile, but nonetheless, Politico is a left-wing site pretending to be something else, but it does do some interesting stuff sometimes. And they had this piece today, 55 things you need to know about Joe Biden. This guy has been, I just want to give you some of this background because he's, and I know I've taken, producer Mark has said no soup for you to me many times over this already, I promise, or I'm lying. He didn't say that, but he's looked at me and I can tell from his eyes that that's what he's thinking. Because, yes, looks like Biden is going to be the nominee. I thought Democrats were more creative than this. They're not. They're going with the oldest, most decrepit, most boring candidate they can possibly find. Bernie's old and decrepit, but he's a Marxist. So at least that's a little bit of spice thrown in the mix. And now we've got Joe Biden looking like he actually might get this whole thing done in Michigan. Michigan's in a week or two. If he has a really good showing in Michigan, which is a place that Bernie actually did well in the last election cycle, that's going to be that's pretty much it at that point, because the rest of the industrial Midwest is going to be very strong Biden territory, and Bernie's not going to be able to catch up. And if Biden goes into the convention with a delegate lead, which it looks like he is, then does anyone really believe that there's going to be some 11th hour effort to make Bernie the nominee? No, not going to happen. You look at all the endorsements are just piling in for Biden. But you look at his background, you look at his story, and there's some interesting stuff. First of all, he's from Scranton, perhaps best known as the town or the fictional office for The Office, the Dunder Mifflin paper company, which I've got to say, I do. The Office is an incredible show. I mean, the writing is so good that I sometimes wish that I could sit down and just, I'm wondering what the writer's process is, because it is the most consistently funny and well-executed comedy that I think I've ever seen. I used to be more of a Parks and Rec guy, but Parks and Rec has some ups and downs. Some down episodes. The first season is bad. I think The Office is probably best. Anyway, Scranton, Pennsylvania is where The Office is supposed to be. Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. Michael Scott Paper Company, short-lived, but it was there too. So that's where Biden comes from. And, he's got a nice story. He played halfback at a Catholic prep school. He met his wife, first wife, Nelia Hunter, on spring break in the Bahamas. Oh, that sounds like fun. And they married in 1966. Beau Biden was born in 1969. And then Hunter Biden, who we're going to be hearing a lot more about, was born a year later. Biden said in a 1970 interview, quote, "I'm not a keep them barefoot and pregnant man, but I'm all for keeping them pregnant until I have a little girl. The only good thing in the world is kids." I like it. I mean, it's a nice sentiment, actually. I got to have some kids. I don't know if producer Mark's going to beat me to the kid finish line here, but got to have some kids one day. One of us at some point on this show will be able to celebrate the birth of some young ones.
I welcome you to beat me. Please go ahead.
You got some more. Well, you're like 25, aren't you?
I'm turning 27 in a month.
Woo!
I'm getting old.
Man. That's like, I think you could actually rent a car and not pay the higher rate now. Look at you.
Yeah, my car insurance will go down because I'm like
Yeah.
older.
We got a graybeard millennial in the making over here. There we go. So Biden was, I just think, this is worthwhile if you want to know about this guy, Joe Biden, because, we see him, he's, corn pop and the blonde hair on my legs, and I yell, and sometimes I get a little southern for no reason. I say y'all when I want to seem folksy, even though I'm from Delaware. I think we should know more of the backstory of this guy. He was drafted after finishing law school, but he got he was, what is it? Is it 4F? I don't know what the designation is when you're drafted and you are essentially told you can't for health reasons. But he had asthma. So he didn't end up going to Vietnam because of his asthma. Now, okay, I guess that's a legit reason. I just would note the media has savaged Trump for bone spurs for not going to Vietnam. I always thought bone spurs were operable, by the way. Am I mistaken with that? I don't know, but I'm just going to know. And by the way, Bill Clinton being a draft dodger, which is a whole other thing, that was fine with the media. They're fine with that. So I'm just trying to I want to keep us as consistent as we can be here. They've called Trump a coward because of his bone spurs. Does Biden still have asthma? Did he always have asthma? Do we just, I'm just asking questions. Right? As everyone says when they're poking around and don't want to get in trouble. I'm just asking questions. Let's see here. If he's elected in this, he's now 77 years old. If he wins this election, he will be the oldest president ever inaugurated. He has been a United States senator since he ran when he was 29 years old. So he wanted to do this right away. Now, he did lose, and I mentioned this before, he lost his wife and young child, and his two boys, Beau and Biden, were badly hurt in a car crash, which is a horrible tragedy. I also have to point out that, and Kevin Williamson wrote about this in National Review this week, that Biden openly and on the record has lied about that incident in the past, claiming that the truck driver who ran into the car that his wife and children were in had drunk his lunch. It was drunk driving. He has made that, which is a total lie. And the children of the now deceased truck driver have for years begged Biden to stop lying about their father. The police report said that Joe Biden's wife drove into the other lane. Now, obviously, it's an accident. It's a horrible mistake. But you don't have to get additional sympathy for yourself. You don't get to lie and malign another human being and think about the impact that has on his family and everything, to say that he committed a criminal act, and that's why. That's a horrible thing to say. Joe Biden's done that. That's Joe Biden's a liar. They're going to have a tough, we had that guy Jenk who was freaking out yesterday, and I played his clip for you, but I dealt with this on Bill Maher, where anything I tried to say about coronavirus is Trump's a liar, Trump's a liar. That's all they say. I said, well, I mean, can we talk about what he's doing, or can we talk about no, Trump's a liar. Anything else is BS. Trump, this is just, it's like a tick. They can't get past this. They're going to have an interesting time explaining, how is Joe Biden not a liar? Joe Biden's a liar. He lies on some big things. And he lies when he doesn't have to. He's very comfortable lying. So, and that's, you don't lie about stuff like that. You don't lie about somebody else being responsible for killing your wife and child in a car accident in a way that they would be negligent and criminally liable for. You don't get to destroy someone else's reputation for doing that. That's not okay. Biden got a lot of heat because in the 70s he opposed court-ordered busing. As I've told you, people don't think through the busing issue very much. They think it's a very, cut and dry. This is absolutely what needs to be done. There's no question. Okay, but a lot of people, a lot of young African Americans didn't want to be bused. They wanted to stay in their community with their friends, near their families. They don't get a say in this? Nope. Because, let's be honest, a bunch of white lib Democrats thought this was a great idea and didn't care what the people that it was supposed to help actually thought about it. And then, by the way, there are also young white students that were sent, way across town, hour each way in the bus. As somebody who's spending like an hour and a half every day in the subway, let me tell you, the commutes wear you down. They wear you down. One of the great advantages of the modern world we live in now is increasingly the ability to work more remotely, to get more work done remotely, to be able to mold your schedule. We've gotten away, and this is a departure from the Biden talk, but we've gotten away from the early industrial revolution concept of like show up, 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours in a place doing this thing all day. It's you're in place of machinery, and your productivity is just hours and labor. There's no, there's no creativity. There's no accelerating your process. We got to kind of cubicles and more 9 to 5 and, air conditioned rooms and all. Okay. But increasingly we want to just be, what is the job? What is productive? What do you need to do? And wherever you can do that is acceptable. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And commuting really long distances, I'm hoping for most people will be a thing of the past increasingly over time. It already is changing. He is a, quote, self-described gaffe machine. This is what I was talking about with Biden being a liar. He falsely said he was shot at in Iraq. He falsely said he met the survivors of the 2018 Parkland, Florida shooting while he was vice president. That happened after he left office. He falsely claimed he was arrested while trying to visit Nelson Mandela in apartheid-era South Africa, and so on and so forth. Those are just the ones they list here. Those are lies. The guy's lying, right? He is lying about this stuff. And they're going to have to defend all this, I suppose. In 1987, he ran for president the first time. Do you remember what happened? Oh, yeah. Another little ethical lapse. He plagiarized speeches by Margaret Thatcher and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, falsely referring to ancestors of his who worked in the coal mines. He didn't have ancestors who worked in coal mines. He's a liar, folks. He just lies. Classic, cynical politician. Let's see what else we have. He presided over the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court confirmation. Told you about that. He later apologized and said he didn't give her a fair hearing because he realized he was supposed to finish off Clarence Thomas. That was what he was supposed to do, but he didn't do it. And he voted against the use of force to drive Iraq out of Kuwait in 1991, which now is generally considered to have been a very successful intervention with very limited, although people might extend the first Iraq War into the second Iraq War. That's a whole other conversation. He said that he called to his face Slobodan Milosevic a, quote, damned war criminal. Nope, no, he didn't. And he says that. You go through this, and there's a recurring theme here that he just lies a lot. he tells a lot of stories that are not true, and he's also going to have to defend his son getting $50,000 a month for Burisma and saying that that's fine. Perhaps he should just go around saying it was a perfect board position. Just take that approach. That's what the media's been doing for him. Remember that the Biden gaffes are nothing new. And maybe for those of us who think that he's too old, and I do see some conservatives that are claiming publicly they think that this is the onset of dementia or senility. Keep in mind, Biden has been saying a lot of very dumb stuff for a very long time. And this is nothing really new for him. It's just the way that this was reported on in the past was when he was the vice president for Obama, it was, oh, it's Uncle Joe. He's just being Joe. They had this way of making it all seem almost affable that Biden was often sounded like a bumbling fool. So that was what they did. They covered for him during the Obama years whenever he said something particularly dumb. And we all remember the, put y'all back in chains comment he made. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you go, whoa, Joe Biden, what are you doing here? But here's another example of exactly that. Producer Mark, play clip 4, please.
Look, tomorrow's Super Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I?
Tomorrow's Super Tuesday. Now, to be fair, that's just a stumble. Okay, see, I'll call it like it is, balls and strikes. That's not some of the other stuff we've seen where he'll say 150 million people have died from gun violence in 10 years in this country. And he says it. And it's like he doesn't know what he's saying. It's like he's memorized lines and doesn't actually understand what he's saying. That's a stumble that we could all make. But it's just kind of funny that Biden is super duper Tuesday. Because, it's made by the thing that's out there that it was made by. So now we go into what's really happening today on Super Tuesday. What is going on before our very eyes? President Trump referred to this as an anti-Bernie coup. You have to note the way that these Democrat candidates, they fall in line with 19th century Prussian infantry precision. They do exactly what they are being told to do by the establishment. Democrats love to talk about how, they're a big party with all these ideas and how, radical some of their positions are, especially now, and how they're that they're willing to hear out their own members and all this stuff. But no, actually, there's like this power apparatus that they're not going to allow anybody else to seize that. The whole AOC wing and all this. Now, maybe they won't be successful, but they are actively trying to suppress the up-and-coming left within the Democratic Party now. The Pelosi-Schumer wing of the Democrats, which is the leadership and the establishment echelon of the Democratic Party, they plan to keep this exactly as it is as long as they can. Brian Williams could get an interview with any politician, anybody in the country, anytime. Most trusted voice in the country. And he's sitting down. I got to set the context for this. He is sitting down with a member of the New York Times editorial board named Mara Gay. And you would think the New York Times editorial board, they would sneer at submissions from real conservatives. Oh, that's not up to our standards. They have all kinds of political bias going on. But they think of themselves, even though they publish people like Charles Blow, Krugman, and others, they think of themselves as intellectual elites. And yet, Charles Blow, Krugman, I'm trying to think of who are some of the worst, Bruni, just Thomas Friedman, but they still hold to the standard. And they're referring, so you have a top anchor formerly of NBC, now MSNBC because of his problem with the truth, talking to a New York Times editorial board member about a tweet from somebody who is a Washington Post contributor, somebody who writes frequently, has in her byline the Washington Post and her contributions to it. This is how they math good. Play it, producer Mark.
You see it as a possibility if he wants to spend $1 billion beating this guy, he could do it.
Absolutely. Somebody tweeted recently that actually with the money he spent, he could have given every American $1 million.
I've got it. Let's put it up on the screen. When I read it tonight on social media, it kind of all became clear. Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. U.S. population 327 million. Don't tell us if you're ahead of us on the math. He could have given each American $1 million and have had lunch money left over. It's an incredible way of putting it.
It's an incredible way of putting it. It's true. It's disturbing. It does suggest, what we're talking about here, which is there's too much money in politics.
Oh my God. That is my favorite. That might be, that's a top 10 TV news clip. That is absolutely fantastic. You cannot make this up. That's right, folks. They think that because Bloomberg spent $500 million and the U.S. population is $327 million, he could easily give each American $1 million cash and have lots of money left over from what he spent on the campaign. Now, I make fun of things like Joe Biden saying that 100, as he did without correcting it. It wasn't misspeaking. He said it and he let it stay out there. Joe Biden said 150 million people have been killed in gun violence in the last 10 years. There are 320 million people in America, probably more like 330 now. A lot of illegal aliens. $500 million divided by $327 million is nowhere near $1 million per person. And yet, you have to remember, this isn't just something that was said. Because look, when you're math under pressure, one of the reasons people go into TV news, into acting, I'm just telling you the truth. Other people won't tell you. University teaching, get a PhD in the humanities, because they can't do math. It's true. If I was better at math, you think I'd be sitting here? I'd probably be working at some hedge fund, slapping producer Mark with $1,000 bills. But he wouldn't care because he'd be my right-hand man at the hedge fund, and he'd be driving around in a brand new Porsche 911. You know what I mean? He'd be fine with it. But that, if I was good at math, we'd probably be doing something else. I'm better at math than these people, though. That I can tell you. Brian Williams of NBC, New York Times, editorial board member, referring to a tweet put out by somebody from the Washington Post. These are three of the most elite media institutions you could find anywhere, and none of them picked this up. And you have to understand, this was a tweet they put on the screen. So they chose that this was prepared beforehand. Producers at NBC or MSNBC, this was at MSN, which is the same thing. Producers at MSNBC saw this tweet. They saw it, and they thought, yeah, that really nails it. I think Joe Biden, everyone has realized for a long time, has been propped up by the machine. They tried to do this with Hillary in 2016. They are, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting a different result. That's that saying. They're running the same election they did in 2016. They're expecting a different result. Do we really think that Joe Biden is a more inspiring, more effective candidate than Hillary Clinton? Now, I think that Hillary is, has a lot of problems, but Democrats love her. They do. The Democrat establishment loves Hillary Clinton. That's why they went to bat for her against Bernie in the first place. That's why the deep state covered for her with the email fiasco. There was so much that you look at here that they did. And the media was just all in against Trump in favor of Hillary, and it wasn't enough. They think that it's going to be enough for Biden. Let's unpack that theory together a little bit.
And for folks in the working class that are below 400, they will, in fact, increase their premiums. The public option will be available in my plan. We'll make sure it's not quality. We'll make sure it's only affordable.
We'll make sure it's not it's not quality, but only affordable. What? You're going to have a lot more of this. Joe Biden, for a man who effectively makes his living speaking publicly. That's really what his job is. He's made millions of dollars as a paid public speaker since leaving the vice president's office. Millions of dollars. We're also going to learn more and more about the millions of dollars that his son and brother and other people around him made just because they happen to be friends with Joe Biden. Interesting. Burisma's not the only thing that people are going to be poking into. But Biden's gaffes are one thing, and the media is going to tell you. I already know what they're going to just say, oh, everybody makes mistakes. And you'll start to see clips of Trump, speaking off the cuff where he stumbles on something, and they're going to try to say, oh, it's all the same, and he's not senile and all that. Well, you got two big problems here for Biden that are on the style side of things, not looking so much at the substance of what he stands for, but more of Joe Biden, the person, and stylistically how he is as a politician. You have the gaffes, the misspeaking, which is not really a big issue, except people honestly think that he might be in the early stages of dementia. And I think that that's a fair discussion to have, given some of the things that he says. But then there's also that Joe Biden, as I told you at the beginning of the show, Joe Biden is a huge liar. He has a long established history of lying about things publicly and on the record. This was just an old news report circulating right now about Joe Biden. I think this is back in the 80s when he was running for president the first time around. This is going to come back to haunt this guy. Play 23.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
His memory had failed him. My friends, I am honored every day by this audience giving me their time. I mean, I really do. I love all of you, even though I've only met a handful of you in person. If I ran around saying that I was a Harvard-educated Rhodes Scholar who also, won like a Westinghouse Prize in science, and it turned out that no, like I just went to undergrad somewhere and got a degree like everybody else, would anybody believe that that was just my memory? By the way, this was in the 80s. He wasn't super old. Anybody believe that that would be okay? I'd get a pass on that one. 3 degrees? No. 1 degree. Full scholarship? No. Partial scholarship. Top of his class? No. Bottom of his class. Joe Biden is a consistent and continuous liar. Some people might even say pathological.
I will also say, guys, that it is, I think that we all know, and this election cycle in particular has also presented very legitimate questions about the challenges of women running for president of the United States.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's obvious. Just look at what's happened. Look at what's happened. There are no women currently in this race. And we can have a longer discussion about it, but the reality is that there's still a lot of work to be done to make it very clear that women are exceptionally qualified and capable of being the commander-in-chief of the United States of America.
Gender in this race, that is the trap question for every woman. If you say, yeah, there was sexism in this race, everyone says whiner. And if you say, no, there was no sexism, about a bazillion women think, what planet do you live on? I promise you this, I will have a lot more to say on that subject later on.
I'm sure she will. She's like, it's the reason that I'm not going to be given the nuclear codes on the biggest job in the country is people just won't vote for a woman president. No, it's not true. And also, let's just step back for a moment. As Kamala Harris, we had Kamala and Warren, we could play others too, are complaining about how we don't have a woman presidential contender. First of all, it's not true. Tulsi Gabbard is still running for president. And I also think it's so interesting that the way this is framed is immediately skips past. It immediately jumps beyond, this is a Democrat primary. So is the Democratic Party full of sexists? Is the Democrat Party full of people that are unwilling to vote for a woman to be president? Because can't blame this one on Republicans. It's not a Republicans thing. So, and also, this is just, why it is whining. It's whining. Elizabeth Warren is not a strong candidate. She didn't win her own home state, for heaven's sake. She came in third in Massachusetts behind Biden and Bernie Sanders. She had the most bizarre political self-inflicted wound I've ever seen, with they're like, oh, I'm 1,024th Native American. See? I win. Who wants some powwow chow? No. We're not just going to pretend that didn't happen. And if you remember, because liberals like to tell us about this all the time, Hillary Clinton actually got more in the popular vote than Trump, even though that's not the contest that's being run. And I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of people that live in California and New York State don't vote for Republicans because they know they're going to not, the vote's going to go to the Democrat. A lot of campaigning is focused on battleground states that is not focused on getting the vote out. That's not the contest that's being run. So it's a stupid point. But in terms of the willingness of people to just in general cast votes for a female to be president, I mean, we've already run the experiment. Plenty of people are willing to vote for a woman to be president. And I think a lot of people would like, it feels good. There's all this research that social scientists, who aren't really scientists, but they call themselves that, political scientists, again, not science, it's politics, but they'll look into this, and by polling and by the studies, people vote. A lot of why they vote is a result of how it makes them feel to cast that vote. What does it say about me to vote for this person or to vote for this proposition if it's some kind of a referendum, right? How do I feel about myself when I do that? And this is why we kept hearing about how, Obama had to overcome so much racism in the to become president. No, people were excited in general at the prospect of voting for the first African-American president. It made them feel good. Anybody who was ideologically open to Obama's agenda felt great voting for the first African-American president. And a lot of people who were, independent-minded or whatever, they probably voted for Obama in part because they wanted to vote for the first African-American president. The same thing would be true of voting for the first woman president. You want to be on that groundbreaking, history-making victory train, right? But you don't want to do it if you think the person who you're voting for happens to be terrible. That's just the case with Elizabeth Warren. People don't like her. The media can maybe push her far enough so that she can continue to be a senator from Massachusetts, but it just doesn't have national level appeal. She's somebody who there's nothing about her that you can point to and say, yeah, that feels like it's really authentic and really good. In fact, the best stuff that she's done in the past, her book on the two-income trap is very interesting. And I think that that's something that does deserve more public discussion. Why is it now the standard that so many people, particularly in urban areas, right, in cities, it is expected in our culture generally? Some of you, of course, are going to say, no, it's not. But if you live in New York, if you live in California, you live in a lot of these blue strongholds, two parents working, even with small kids at home, that's the expectation. Why is that? It was not always the case. That has changed now. And there's a lot of complicated reasons we could cite for why that is. Some of them are economic, some of them are social, but it has certainly changed this country in ways that we haven't really fully come to grips with yet. She wrote a book on that. She had interesting ideas on that, but now she's like Bernie Light. She's the female Bernie who's a little more palatable to the establishment, and so that was what she was going for. And I just think it actually damages the future prospects of other women on either side of the aisle who would vote for president to have this consistent, oh, it was sexism. No, we make fun of everybody who runs for president. Male, female, you name it. We make fun of every candidate. We judge every candidate based on who they are, what they stand for, what they say. And there's really, I just don't believe this myth that the libs tell themselves that it's because Hillary was a woman that she didn't win. And she of course, has blamed it on sexism. It's sour grapes. I mean, this is sore loser stuff. It's sore loser stuff from Elizabeth Warren, to be sure. I mean, this Pelosi says the same thing. She's going on, Pelosi. Play 17.
But I do think there's a certain element of misogyny that is there. And some of it isn't really mean-spirited. It just isn't their experience. Many of them will tell you they had a strong mom, they have strong sisters, they have strong daughters, but they have their own insecurities.
It's just a cheap shot. Is it cheap? Based on what? Why is she saying this? There are insecurities that people would not vote for a woman president. Maybe it's just not a good candidate. I think what's going to happen, by the way, I'm just going to put this out there. I think you're going to have, and I'm not going to name, I'm not in the prediction business in politics for at least the next couple of weeks, because it looks like Biden is going to be the nominee. Whoops. But I think you're going to have the first president of the United States be a Republican who's a female. I think you're going to have the first female president of the United States be a Republican. And that will be a fascinating test of liberals who claim that they're shattering the ultimate glass ceiling, and because they've created this whole identity, which I know we talked a lot yesterday about this, and it was kind of an intense first hour of the show, but I think it's an important and intense topic, and we have to speak honestly about it when you have women shrieking and screaming on the steps of the Supreme Court about how proud they are of their abortions. I almost want to cry for them. Like I tear up thinking about what they've done to those unborn babies and to themselves and to their souls in the process. But we have to move on to other topics today. Liberal women, though, have adopted this mentality that they're to be female. First of all, I got so much today. I don't know. I came into work today just ready to fire on all cylinders. First of all, liberal women have a difficult time now accepting the progressive agenda or they should have a difficult time with it because it doesn't really allow for a clear definition of what a woman is. Really mean that. What is a woman according to libs? It's not a biological state. It might be a psychological state, but it's not a psychological state that anybody could particularly explain. They'll say, and there's a lot of incoherence here too. They'll say that young boys and girls don't play with different toys because of biology. But then the moment somebody says that they're trans, particularly if it's a boy who thinks he's a girl, who's 8 or 9 years old, they want to start dressing him like a girl, playing with girl toys. They want all the trappings of female stuff, but there's no biological connection between these things, they'll tell you. So then why the big push to have the kid playing with the female stuff and dressing as a female? It's incoherent. You can't make sense of it. They can't define what a woman is. But here is what they will define for you. The left believes that to be considered a woman, to be in good standing with the female gender / whatever that includes that's not actually female now, you have to adopt certain political positions. And if you do not adopt those political positions, internalize them, fight for them, believe them, shriek about equal pay when it's a myth, that the pay gap is because of sexism. It's just not true. Economists have looked at it over and over. Every time they come back, it's not true, but they say it. Claim that men and women are equal. Claim that there's no important biological difference between male and female strength, endurance, and other things, so that we need to have women in forward combat roles, even if they can't actually meet the standards. We need to have men competing in women's sports. All these different things. You have to accept all of that. But the single most important thing to be a woman, if you're going to be considered a real woman by the left, by the Democratic Party in America today, you must be absolutely devoted to abortion as a fundamental female right. And if you are not, you're not actually a woman anymore. And we will see this play out if we do have a female Republican candidate for the presidency, and there are a few that come to mind that I think are going to, after Trump hopefully wins re-election, but there are a few that I think we could all point to and say, that would be probably a formidable candidacy. You will see the media without even batting an eyelash, without even a second thought, start running with, well, they're not really, this isn't really a win for women because this Republican presidential contender isn't really a woman because she believes in, I don't know, traditional family and male and female roles and is pro-life. That's pretty much, if you answer yes to those things, you're not really a woman according to Democrats. You're a traitor. You're outside. You have female biology, but not the female, membership card or whatever. That's where we are in America today. It's pretty upsetting. It's pretty absurd, but it's the truth. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.